Well, good day and welcome to this week's episode of ILLinoiscornTV. Please feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you can see more agriculture content coming soon. This week, we will join Stu Ellis for a visit with an actual farmer from the Ukraine. We will hear from the Clean Air Initiative and we'll hear a video from Dr. Vijay at the U of I. Well, we all know about the fighting in the Ukraine, and Stu Ellis had a chance to hear directly from a farmer about trying to grow a crop under these circumstances. Let's listen in.
Yeah, farming-wise, it's the export, it's the sales of the products, but personally, of course, we have 40 guys in the army. We're bringing them supplies. One of them is probably a prisoner of war, and one of them is missing in action. So, those are things you can't replace by anything, so that's the most, I would say, difficult things,
A lot of people who might be watching or listening to this are going to say, why does he do what he does?
Yeah, because I'm a farmer, because farming is what you do, and you can't stop for a season, you stop seeds in the ground, winter weeds in the ground in September, and nearly a year later you harvest it, and without knowing what the price is going to be, without knowing what the yield is going to be, and that's what we're used to, and you can't miss a season. Because you only get one chance a year, and so yeah, you have to keep on doing it, in supporting the country and supporting the army. It's also self-interest, because if the Russians would have taken over, we wouldn't be able to farm. So, it goes hand in hand, supporting the people, supporting the army and farming.
Well, back here in the U.S., farmers in Illinois have planted 73% of acres thus far, and 17% of corn has emerged as of May 7th. Now let's turn to Angela Tin, Director of the Clean Air Initiative and their partnership with the American Lung Association. Illinoiscorn is also a proud partner with the ALA, and we are glad to receive the support for ethanol blends in fuel tanks.
As individuals, we must be aware of the fuel that we use and the vehicles we drive. Since 40 to 70% of the problems come from motor transportation sources, we must make the clean air choice to use the good fuel and the good vehicle technology. There are two main streams of pollution from mobile sources. One comes from the pollution from the vehicles, and one comes from the pollution from the fuels. The use of ethanol improves the combustion process, and so there are less tailpipe emissions from the particulates and especially the aromatics. Some of the health benefits start with respiratory systems, and so it will decrease the asthma, the lung cancer, the respiratory disease, and all the other irritations that affect our upper respiratory system. But in addition to that, there are also benefits to the cardiovascular and neurovascular systems. Renewable fuels reduces the carbon footprint and also the life cycle emissions that comes from the production of fossil fuels.
And now let's finish out this week's episode, which includes a video from Dr. Vijay at the University of Illinois about how U.S. corn has a higher starch quality. Thank you for tuning in this week.
Hi, I'm Vijay Singh. I am a professor here in Department of Agriculture and Biological Engineering, and I'm also the Executive Director of Integrated Bioprocessing Research Lab, which is a translational research facility here at University of Illinois. And we are here today to talk about a study that has been funded by Illinois Corn Marketing Board to evaluate the wet milling characteristics of U.S. corn and compare it with corn that originates in other parts of the world. We have been sampling corn wet milling facilities around the world, bringing the U.S. corn and South American corn back into University of Illinois to evaluate starch yields of those samples. And what we have found over the last 3 years that U.S. corn outperforms corn that originates in any other part of the world. in terms of starch yields. And what that does is it affects the profitability of the corn wet milling process. The overall conclusions of the study was that US corn on an average will give you about 1 to 2% higher starch yield. And that is very important because 1% increase in starch yield for a plant that is grinding 1,000 metric tons per day can result in an additional revenue of $1 million. US corn, being a softer endosperm corn, is prone to breakage when it moves through the grain merchandising channels. So US corn, when it arrives at international locations, especially at corn wet milling plants, has gone through many different steps in the grain merchandising channels. As a result, it results in a lot of brokens and dust. And because of brokens and dust, US corn visually gets rejected by these plants. However, what they're not realizing is that even with brokens and dust, US corn can result in much higher starch yields compared to corn originating in other parts of the world.